Stop by your local dealer or go to KubotaOrangeDays.com.
ACE's YardRx program prescribes the best lawn care, specific to your yard's needs, delivered every season. Because when you want greener grass, less weeds, and fewer bugs, you can get a personalized prescription delivered free from the helpful folks at ACE. Subscribe now and save 20% on everything you need all year. From our store to your front door, with service so good it's guaranteed.
Ace is the place with the helpful hardware, folks.
And Doug.
Thank you both for coming in. I'm a bit worried about Doug Jr. I know how important Liberty Mutual is to your family.
They customize car insurance to save people hundreds.
Right. Well, Doug Jr. keeps writing this.
This Junior.
Well, at least he spelled insurance right?
He did not.
Only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
What a hotel.
Right? And only $250 a night for my favorite night. What?
You didn't check Trivago.
I got mine for $155. You have to check Trivago.
Oh, yeah? Prove it.
On Trivago, you can compare hotel prices from multiple different sites.
Even your favorite one.
Look, same hotel, $100 less.
You didn't check Trivago?
I didn't check Trivago.
Check Trivago to compare prices and save up to 40%. Hotel? Trivago.
If you're over 50, Consumer Cellular has special deals for you. Need unlimited talk, text, and high-speed data? That'll be $35 per month, or way more with big wireless. And if you look at 2 lines, Consumer Cellular is almost half the price. Plus, extra lines are just $20 each per month. Why haven't you switched? Got questions? Just call us. See how we can cut your bill. If you're over 50, get 2 unlimited lines for $30 each. Call Consumer Cellular.
These eyes.
These eyes? These eyes make a statement.
They take it all in.
These eyes I got from my mom.
Which I got from my mom.
Which I got from my mom.
They helped me bake this.
Nail this?
These eyes are important to me.
Because they're the only ones I've got.
And these eyes help those eyes see their best.
With a quality eye exam and 2 pairs of glasses at one great price.
An eye exam plus 2 pairs of glasses for $95 at America's Best.
When you can't watch, listen. Get the latest news, business, and news headlines on SiriusXM. Anytime, anywhere. Fox News Audio on SiriusXM. America is listening.
All right, so you're looking at the Dow Jones Industrial Average. A couple hours left in trading on this Thursday afternoon. The Dow's up just over 1,000 points now. That's more than a 2% loss. What'd I say, David?
You said up, but that's okay.
Okay, I don't think so. But we'll test that one out
we'll
in a
go back
second.
to the tape.
Here's the update. The market's obviously nervous about inflation rearing its ugly head as oil prices are back above $80 a barrel. Gasoline prices are up like 30 cents just in the last month alone. There's been quite a pop in the energy markets as this conflict in Iran continues. And as a result, the equity markets are nervous. So you're seeing this sell off. But David Asman's about to point out they're still up significantly over the past year, but certainly this is reason for a bit of concern for those watching their investments. We're going to have more on this with David in just a moment. John?
Sandra, I heard you say the Dow was off 1,000, which was
off
1,000. Yeah. Clear the wax out of your ears, David.
I apologize.
All right, the State Department working to rescue roughly 1,000 Americans stranded in the Middle East as the Iran war widens. However, private nonprofits, as they have been wont to do in the past, are stepping in to help. Dana Marie McNichol's got that story for us. Dana Marie?
Hey, John, good afternoon. That's right. Grable Rescue, a Florida-based nonprofit, carried out one of the first extractions of U.S. citizens from Israel. That rescue, including a church group from the Tampa area. Now, they were on a pilgrimage to the Holy Land, but quickly found themselves in the middle of a war zone. We spoke to the pastor who is leading the group of 34 Americans. He described the terrifying moment panic set in.
We were actually doing a water baptismal service at the Jordan River. Suddenly, hideous, unbelievably loud sirens began to blare. Strange to us, we didn't know what it was, but the guides knew exactly what it was, incoming missiles. And so they rushed us to a bomb shelter.
Pastor Randy Helms says their bomb shelter was in the hotel basement, but sporadic missiles also forced them into stairwells. He says they tried to get a hold of the State Department for help but had no luck until he came across Grable Rescue. The nonprofit CEO says the situation is challenging.
It's incredibly scary. People have kids. People don't know what to do. They're completely paralyzed by this is their first experience.
The combat veteran and Purple Heart recipient coordinated a bus with armed security to escort them from Israel to the Jordan border. And we did touch base with them just today, and they're still waiting to fly out of the region. And John, Grable hires their buses, securitied and chartered flights, and they say resources are running low. Just last week, they were in Mexico rescuing Americans from cartel violence, so never a dull moment.
Yeah, that's the understatement of the year. Dana Marie McNichol for us. Dana Marie, thank you. Now this.
Donald Trump will raise taxes. No, I'm the one that's lowering taxes.
We will pass massive tax cuts for workers, and that includes no tax on tips. No tax on tips. I will make the Trump tax cuts permanent. I will make the Trump tax cuts the biggest tax cuts ever, bigger than Reagan.
Campaign promises becoming a reality as millions of Americans see President Trump's new tax cuts in effect this tax season. The IRS says 4 out of 10 filers are claiming at least one new break, receiving an average of $775 more in their refunds this year. Let's bring in Fox Business anchor David Asman. That is a happy day for many. David, welcome.
It is. Thank you. And we were saying before we got into this that in fact, you look at a down day today in the markets and you think, oh my God, you have 1,000 points on the Dow, big drop on the others. We are still up about 16% from year to year, from year to now, 16% on the S&P 500. We're up 22% on the NASDAQ in the past year. So you're still doing well. And we should mention, by the way, the 401ks under Donald Trump you have gained just in the past year under Donald Trump, not including his first term, $23,000 gain for the average 401k. It was down $24,000 for the full 4 years of Biden. So you've done, just in the past year, much better under Trump than you did in 4 years of Biden. You said 40% of early filers are now claiming new tax cuts. That is huge. Yep. That is a huge jump. Overtime deductions are the most popular, and the overtime deductions, by the way, keep inflation down because that increases productivity. So it helps on two ends. Social Security payments, $6,000 deduction if you make less than $100,000. And how much of a call is this to the Democrats who keep saying that all these tax cuts are skewed to the rich? People who get paid overtime are not usually rich people. They're usually people on wages that are getting overtime. That's not the rich people. Seniors making less than $100,000 a year are not rich people. These are not just for the rich people. These are for the middle class. So most of those claims you're talking about, that we're talking about, are by households making under $100,000 a year. Yep. Kevin Hassett, to add to that, is saying, look at what this will do to wages. And by the way, I'll point out why this is so important in this moment in history. Here's Hassett.
Once we adjust for the after-tax wage, and we get all the tax refunds that are coming from no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, we expect the number, our estimate is the number will be between 2,500 and 3,000 for this year, making the combined effect of the first 2 years be above $4,000.
And while we see the struggle to bring prices down, if we can get wages up,
bingo,
that really helps out that inflationary situation or high price environment, which if prices never come down but wages go up, those prices don't feel as bad to so many who are struggling with them.
And I would put before wages the word real, because wages can go up, but if inflation is going up faster than your wages, you're losing money. Real middle class income has gone up in the first year of Donald Trump by over $4,000, $4,072. Under 4 years of Biden, it was up, but only $569. So you compare 4 years of just getting $569 from Biden 1 year you get $4,000 of under Trump in terms of real income. That's a nice bonus. And again, we're not talking about the rich here. We're talking about the middle class.
Okay, can I finish off by bringing that Dow board back? Because there are a lot of people who are going to pop on the TV today, or they're going to open up their their investment accounts or whatever it might be, and say, but this is a drop of 2%. This is off of what has been all-time highs. We saw a lot of record highs in the U.S. stock market this year, but this is as energy prices are going up. So what do you say to folks right now who are fearing the rise in gas prices? We've been enjoying the drop.
We have been enjoying the drop. We should mention two things. One, the Fed looks at core inflation rate, which takes out food and energy. I don't think that. I think most people have to eat. Most people have to fill up their gas tanks. So you do look at energy costs. But if you're worried about the Fed not lowering rates at all because of this, that may not happen. But the main thing is that real American income is going up. Their 401ks are going up. I always buy on the dip, so a lot of people like me and the average investors, by the way, have done much better than institutional investors over the past year or 2 years.
David,
so
we appreciate
they're buying.
you. All right, we've got some breaking news. We'll see you soon, David. Thank you so much. John.
We do indeed have some breaking news. This comes a day after a difficult couple of days on Capitol Hill in both the House and the Senate for Kristi Noem, the Homeland Security Secretary. She is being replaced. Senator Mark Wayne Mullen is now going to take over her job. The president making the announcement on Truth Social just a short time ago. He writes, quote, "I am pleased to announce that the highly respected United States Senator from the great state of Oklahoma, Mark Wayne Mullen, will become the United States Secretary of Homeland Security effective March 31st of this year. The current Secretary, Kristi Noem, who has served us well and has had numerous and spectacular results, especially on the border, will be moving to be Special Envoy for the Shield of the Americas, which is a new security initiative in the Western Hemisphere that they're announcing on Saturday at Doral in Florida. The president says, "I thank Kristi for her service at Homeland." So this comes amid reports that the president was none too pleased about the advertising campaign money that came to light during these hearings, Sandra. And so just in the last 24 hours, we've heard a lot of rumors that Mark Wayne Mullen may be tapped for DHS, and now it appears the president has made that decision, and that's going to happen at the end of the month.
Yeah, there was some reporting leading up to this that this could be the case. No confirmation had been made by the president himself until now, but there was reports of frustration inside the White House over some of the actions taken on the part of Kristi Noem. Looking at the announcement, though, and looking at the touting President Trump does of Mark Wayne McMillan's record, 10 years in the U.S. House of Representatives, 3 in the Senate. The president says he's done a tremendous job with the people of Oklahoma. As the president pointed out, somewhere he did very well. So obviously this is breaking news. Just now, President Trump making the formal announcement that DHS Secretary Kristi Noem will be replaced, John.
Will, and also the president taking note of Mark Wayne Mullen's status as a former undefeated professional MMA fighter, also the only Native American in the Senate. Let's bring in Jackie Heinrich. She's at the White House. The timing of this, I guess, was a little bit of a surprise. We didn't expect it quite this soon, but it was certainly expected.
Well, John, this president has been reluctant to shuffle his staff since really early in his second term when he moved National Security Advisor Mike Waltz over to Ambassador of the UN. Since then, he's kept all of his folks sort of in position, weathered whatever criticism comes their way. And Kristi Noem, the DHS Secretary, has faced a turbulent period in the last few weeks amid the fallout, the response to the ICE deportation campaign in Minnesota, some public statements that she made. And then most recently this week, her testimony on Capitol Hill, there were reports that her defense of her campaign, her ad campaign, $200 million in spending that prominently featured her sometimes on horseback, claiming that the president, according to these reports, had approved of that, reportedly upset him. He wasn't happy about giving the impression that he had sort of authorized that amid this broader administration effort to root out fraud. So she's being moved now into another role. The Special Envoy for the Shield of the Americas, a new security initiative in the Western Hemisphere that they're announcing on Saturday. The president's been, defensive of Kristi Noem for the last several weeks as she's faced questions about her ability to carry out her duties. He regularly pointed to the success closing the southern border, the fact that there have been no illegal immigrants caught and released into the interior of the U.S. for several months, the fact that overdoses and murders are at historic lows, and pointed to those successes to sort of boost her up and defend keeping her in place. But it seems like that testimony on Capitol Hill might have been a turning point. There were also some reports that FEMA funding that was stalled suddenly came through after questioning. And so this is a rapid development, of course, and something we didn't expect until potentially after the midterms. This is a strange time for the president to make that major of a shakeup. But there was, sort of the writing on the wall after he elevated Tom Homan, his border czar, to take a more prominent role in the ICE deportation campaign. It's well reported that there's been a long-standing rift between Homan and Noem about how this should be handled, sort of the firmer approach versus the softer touch that Homan went in and sort of cleaned up amid all of that public scrutiny over what transpired in Minnesota. Of course, the policy still stands. The president's policy and the goal of deporting any illegal immigrant in the country and certainly prioritizing those who are guilty of crimes does still stand. But the president faced questioning about how much he wanted to defend her. And it seems in the past few weeks that that patience might have worn out.
Yeah, a little bit more about his replacement. Seems to be how when President Trump made the announcement, the focus seemed to be on his record, Jackie. This is somebody, obviously, he's putting his full support behind in making this announcement.
That's right. And Markwayne Mullin is very well liked. He does a lot of TV. He's articulate and, certainly has a lot of relevant experience. Haven't had a chance to read through everything in this very long truth, darted up to the camera as soon as we saw it come out, or make any calls to any other officials to find out more of what has gone on, sort of the background thinking that we might not know from all of the reports that have surfaced. You tend to read that kind of thing, especially when, in newsletters, with a little bit of a grain of salt and wonder, sure, you might ask a question of an official or two, but you don't necessarily take it as, Bible verse. So we certainly need to find out what the president's thinking was, and if it was that testimony in Capitol Hill that changed his mind, if Markwayne Mullin, some quality of his made him better positioned for a new policy objective. We still have to get those answers from them, but from just a first blush read of this news and looking back to the reporting of the last several weeks and months that was critical of Kristi Noem, this is what we know right now.
Yeah, well, you mentioned his numerous television appearances. He was sitting right beside me yesterday. He's always happy to come over and chat with us here. Jackie, thanks so much. We'll let you gather some more information. Chad Pergram joining us now from Capitol Hill. He's got more on the senator and his qualifications to be Homeland Security Secretary. Chad.
Well, you have to think about somebody who would be confirmed in the Senate. And usually the Senate looks at people who are one of their own, somebody who is known, even if you disagree with their policies, as somebody who's pretty confirmable. That we don't know yet. Chris Coons, the Democratic senator from Delaware, just a couple of moments ago, said when he was asked about Markwayne Mullin and whether or not he thought he could do the job, he said, we'll see. But he said it would be hard to do any worse, basically, than Kristi Noem, at least in the eyes of Chris Coons. This is something where this is going to be a safe seat in Oklahoma, where they could appoint somebody. You're not going to change the vote matrix in the Senate there. It's going to be a Republican, and they're not going to have any problems probably getting reelected, in a special election or whatever they would have to do. But they have to get through that process of confirmation. You might remember that really for quite a period during the second part of President Trump's first administration that they had acting Homeland Security secretaries. And I think at the end of the day, we'll look back at those two hearings in both the Senate and the House of Representatives the past couple of days on Capitol Hill as not even the camel that broke, the straw that broke the camel's back, but kind of a hammer. I mean, it was pretty obvious to some people on Capitol Hill that Kristi Noem was probably living on borrowed time. But again, Markwayne Mullin, who's somebody, he's close to the president. He's somebody who is dialed in closely with the Senate Republican leadership. And, it would not be surprising to me to probably have a couple of Democrats who might vote for him because they like him personally and they view him as an honest broker. He's somebody who has worked across the aisle. However, you might have some people who question his temperament. You might remember a couple of years ago where there was a witness, a labor union witness testifying, and he challenged him to a fight. Mark Wayne Mullen is a former MMA fighter, and he actually took his wedding ring off and jumped across the dais as though he was going to fight him. And, they restored order, and Bernie Sanders, who was the chairman of the committee, admonished Mullen. So that might be a strike against him. But again, generally, I want to come back to people who are in the Senate. They're usually people who they can confirm without too many problems. And keep in mind, they don't have to get 60 votes to break a filibuster on a high-level nomination like this for a cabinet secretary. They just need a simple majority, the way they changed the Senate precedent several years ago, guys.
Okay, Chad Pergram on that for us. Chad, thank you so much. Let's bring in Hugh Hewitt, a Fox News contributor, host of the Hugh Hewitt Show. Hugh, jump on in here as we note that the governor of Oklahoma, Stitt, gets to make an interim appointment here. A special election would be called to coincide with the next available regularly scheduled primary, runoff primary, and general election. Your thoughts as we get the news?
Well, I think this is very good for the administration. People forget we're in a war with Iran right now, and the Department of Homeland Security is responsible for those parts of Hezbollah and other terror proxies in the United States that might be organizing some kind of reprisal. It is time for our tough, very tough president to have a very tough guy over at DHS who will take seriously the business of protecting America. Now, Governor Noem, then Secretary Noem, did a good job closing the border, but the border wall is behind. It's not getting built. More important, right now, all eyes on those people who might present a harm to the American people by way of there being extensions of the terror network. So I think Mark Wayne Mullen, very, very well liked within the Senate. He will be easily confirmed. Two traditions in the Senate that will never die: blue slips on district court judges and senators get confirmed. All right, so this is not a question of his getting confirmed. Chris Coons might give you a good quote about how you can't do worse than Kristi Noem. But the fact of the matter, senators get confirmed. So he's going to be right through the process. He'll be in charge of DHS in a couple of weeks. And that's very good for this period of time when they don't need controversy. They need seriousness of purpose, especially to the threat inside the United States to the extent it exists from Iran's proxies.
Yeah, the appointment's supposed to take effect on the 31st of this month. I assume that the Senate Majority Leader John Thune will quickly get on board confirmation proceedings in the Homeland Security Committee. One of the things that's going to be on Mark Wayne Mullen's plate, this is what we originally brought you on to talk about, is this person in Virginia, Abdul Jallo, who had a lengthy criminal record, was repeatedly released and charges dropped by the Commonwealth prosecutor in Fairfax County, a fellow named Steve Descano. And now DHS is concerned that if this guy gets let out again, and he's charged with murder for stabbing a woman at a bus stop. Here's what DHS said about him, quote, "We are calling on Virginia Governor Abigail Spanberger and Virginia sanctuary politicians to commit to not releasing this murderer and violent career criminal from their jail without notifying ICE." So that's going to fall in Mark Wayne Mullen's lap.
You're right, John. And when I read this story, I was shocked. You know Fairfax County. It's a bedroom community.
Yeah, I live
it's
there.
Herndon. It's Fairfax. People know it. It's not where you expected a 41-year-old mom, Stephanie Minter, to be brutally stabbed to death by a complete stranger. He happens to be in the country illegally. He is a so-called dreamer. He's been here since he was 9. But he's been arrested more than 30 times. But Mr. Descano, who's the publicly elected Fairfax County prosecutor, he won in 2020. He won re-election in 2024. There have been 2 recall attempts with him. Both have failed because it's pretty hard to get people riled up about a county prosecutor. I don't think he's going to win re-election this next time, because when you let someone out of jail 30 times, including, by the way, rape, assault, other violent stabbings, they got that woman killed. Now, for the longest time, 21 years, there's been a Supreme Court precedent, City of Castle Rock versus Gonzales, goes back to 2005, that said you can't sue cities when they let bad people, when they don't enforce TROs against bad people. This may be the time to test that precedent and say, Mr. Descano and his staff need to pay this family wrongful death damages because this guy should not have been on the street. He was a known, in fact, the police department, not ICE, ICE had a detainer, should have been honored, but the police department in Fairfax County said, don't let this guy out, and Team Toscano still let him out. It's a tragedy. It's also something that Secretary Mullen will look at, and I think will be able to very, very effectively. He's been your guest yesterday, my guest often. He's a very good communicator. He'll be able to communicate what detainers are and when we need to honor
That's a good point. I mean, you think about the moment that he's stepping into here as the president formally makes this announcement, naming Senator Markwayne Mullin to be the next Homeland Security Secretary. For anybody jumping in on the news right now, this just in. So, Hugh, tell us about the moment he's stepping into. And, you know, obviously part of this was the president's criticisms or frustrations with how Kristi Noem was handling the job and the tasks that he will have before him.
You know, I think President Trump sometimes doesn't get enough credit for running a very tight ship. He will move the players around when he sees someone is in not the right fit and there's a better fit. And so he thought that Mike Waltz could go up to the UN, and he's done a fabulous job at the UN, and he moves people around. He is loath to give people only one or two chances. But when the time is right, and when it is obvious that the deal is not getting done and the job is not being done, he will make the switch. He's a developer. He knows how to get stuff done. And he's in the middle of a war, and he really cannot allow his administration to be taken off course by sideshows like this I don't know how much money was spent on that ad campaign. It's the dumbest thing I've seen. And I've seen a lot of dumb things in my career. But he does reach a point where he says, oh, come on. And so what will happen at DHS? I expect a new team. I expect everyone to get their resumes brushed off because they're going to be thrown out. Markwayne Mullin has been in the House for a long time. He has a bunch of people whom he trusts. He's going to bring in a very serious group of people to do a very serious job. And remember, Tom Rick was our first DHS secretary. It was set up after 9/11. It's a very serious job, and I'm glad he's getting it. And Governor Stitt's got to line out the door of people who can be senators. There are lots of great people in Oklahoma who can be senators.
All right, Hugh Hewitt joining our coverage. Thank you very much, Hugh. All right, John.
All right, the former DHS, thanks a lot, Hugh, appreciate it. The former DH advisor Charles Marino joins us by phone. Charles, what do you make of these changes, and what do you think was the precipitating factor?
Well, I'll tell you, this is something that the country doesn't need right now, and the Department of Homeland Security doesn't need right now, based on the threat level that we're facing here in the country. Look, the operating assumption right now by law enforcement and intelligence agencies is that the country was, in fact, allowed to be infiltrated by threats from around the world during the Biden administration. That is indisputable. We've seen plenty of evidence to support that. These distractions right now and the lack of support that President Trump is now demonstrating towards Secretary Noem just cannot be in place during this time. The safety and security of the American public is too important for this. Somebody needs to be in the position as Secretary of Homeland Security to do the work without the distractions.
Are you suggesting that Markwayne Mullin's not the guy?
No, I'm suggesting he is the guy. We need somebody to come into that position, someone that's got credibility, bipartisan support, to come in and treat the Department of Homeland Security as it should be led. And that is to be led by somebody who's no nonsense and is always prioritizing the safety and security of the American people and not worried about photo ops. This is not the time for the country. The threats are here. Law enforcement already has a tough enough job. We see what ICE and CBP are going through each and every day as they're trying to prioritize these public safety and national security threats and get them out of the country. This should not be a hard decision for the White House.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I misinterpreted what you said at the time, but I think Sandra might have as well. When you said this is not the time, I thought you were saying this is not the time to make a change. But what you're saying, thank you for the clarification, this is not the time to mess around. It's the time to have somebody who's tough in this job. Markwayne Mullin certainly fits that bill. I mean, not just his status, in his pedigree of being an undefeated MMA fighter. I mean, that tends to toughen you up a little bit, but the fact that he was in the House for a long time and now he's been in the Senate, he knows the inner workings of government as well.
Well, and John, he also grasps the issues that we're facing in terms of threats against the homeland. I've testified before the senator before. I've always found his questioning to be well thought out, well studied, and he had an understanding where you don't have somebody staring down at notes, but that knows this stuff off the top of his head. And what you need right now is confident leadership, someone that's going to be focused on the mission of the department, that knows what the priorities are in terms of the way these threats need to be looked at, is able to work collaboratively with the FBI and the Department of Justice, and, oh, by the way, has the support of the president and the White House. I cannot understate how important that is. Yep. The president of the United States sets national security strategy for the country, and the president has to have support in his Secretary of Homeland Security. Well, and if that's not presently there, then the change needs to be made.
Charles, Senator Fetterman, the Democrat from Pennsylvania, the senator already posting to... Okay, Kristi Noem is speaking live. Let's head there.
Those elected officials and those that step up into public service is to fulfill our duty to protect American citizens, that they should come first under our Constitution and our laws, and they should be prioritized, and especially over other people who are from other countries. The Constitution demands that we treat our citizens that way, and the men and women who serve at the Department of Homeland Security, they understand the importance of that, and we also understand the importance of all of our law enforcement officers and what they do across the country to keep people safe. The department was formed after the horrific events on 9/11, and just 2 years later, as Congress put the department together with the support of the president, 23 different agencies who had a nexus and a focus on defending the homeland were put in order to make sure that they were all following the same mission every single day. So it's a very diverse department. It not only has FLETC in it that trains over 130 different federal law enforcement agencies and officers from those agencies. It also includes CBP, ICE, CWMD, which is Countering Weapons of Mass Destruction. So some of you may have gone through some of those trainings to help us detect some of the threats here in our homeland, and also some of the trainings that it takes as far as responding to fires and 911 calls in different specific situations. We have intelligence agencies. We also cover FEMA. FEMA is a disaster response